Let's get into some of the polling detail. We're going to forecast a little bit into Saturday night. There's a lot of polls around. New polls out today too. Someone who knows his way around polls and campaigns here and overseas, Queensland LNP Senator James McGrath. Welcome, James McGrath. YouGov, this is what we're told their last poll before Saturday. It's got the No campaign now increasing its lead by 18 points. That's a walloping in the last few days. The No camp now is ahead 56% to Yes at 38%. Small undecided there at 6%. A lot of talk this week, James, that the Yes vote had bottomed out. But that poll says to me it's still falling.
It is still falling. But being a natural pessimist and being a Conservative from Queensland, it's not over till the fat lady sings. And I'm concerned about complacency amongst some of the No campaign on the ground who think they may have it won. I'm also concerned about that people may not turn up and vote on Saturday because they're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. They've got families to worry about. So the polls look good, but I'm not going to say anything until 6 p.m. on Saturday.
You must have heard my editorial. I have the same sort of worries. I've got worries about people voting informal, although I hope now that message about writing no and not crossing a box or anything like that has got through. But I'm talking to people on pre-polls. I know you've been out on pre-polls. They're saying they haven't seen the aggression that they're seeing now before. This is the Yes camp aggression. I mean, they're really targeting people as they get out of their cars, they walk up the steps and they're on their way to vote. Do you think that's also a risk, that people stay away because they just don't want to really engage in this fight?
That's correct. The aggression from the Yes campaign on the ground is disturbing. We've seen a lot of paid union activists across the state. I've driven from Serena up to Townsville. I've been out in pre-poll today between Jimboomba and here in Brisbane. And the Yes campaign just have this aggro about them, but it's aggro that's combined with this sanctimonious hypocrisy. And I think it is scaring away some people who are frightened about how that attitude is going to rub off. I'm going to say to those who are watching us tonight, ring them up. Don't message them. Ring up your friends and family and make sure they get out there and make sure they do write no on that ballot paper.
Yeah, and look, if you need to, go to the polling booth with others. I mean, there's always a sense of strength in numbers. Just walk past them, let them spew their bile, but you go in and have your say in our democracy in the usual way. What I found interesting, the polls that we saw at the top of the week, I think it was a Resolve poll, but certainly in that news poll, and this should be heart to any Conservative, but that demographic shift right across the board, including young people, now all saying or looking like they're going to vote no. What does, other than those few inner city electorates, it's also across the country broadly. What does that tell you for the Liberal Party, for the Coalition, for the LNP, about if you're prepared to have a fight with a bit of conviction, you might win it? And what does it say to Labor as well?
What it says to Labor, to begin with, is that they've just wasted hundreds of millions of dollars on a referendum that's going to fail, that could have been spent on bettering Aboriginal health and Aboriginal educational outcomes. But what it sends to my party is, yes, we've got to stand up for principle and conviction. We've got to make sure we get out there and campaign. We've got to make sure we get out there and are united as a team, which we are under Peter Dutton. We've got to get out there and make sure we represent our community and fight on those issues that people care about. And the number one issue out there, once the voice is over, is cost of living. And we need to make sure that Anthony Albanese owns this result and make sure that this Gough Whitlam wannabe knows that he's the one who has broken Australia, and we need to make sure that that is on every time that his name is mentioned in the media.
Yeah, well, just on the PM, let's say it goes down. I mean, he can't readily go out there and say, 65, maybe even 70% of Australians got it wrong. This is very much a personal rejection of his voice. It's his proposal. It's been all he's talked about to the exclusion of anything else for months now. How does he deal with this? What's the sort of fallout for him personally and politically, do you think?
Well, if he had the honour of David Cameron, he would resign. And I'll remind everybody that David Cameron, on the morning of the referendum in the UK, when the UK voted to leave the EU, David Cameron had campaigned strongly for the Remain side. His side lost. He resigned that morning on the steps of Downing Street. Now, I will bet you a lot of money that Anthony Albanese will not resign as Prime Minister. And I actually think he should look at David Cameron and take the honourable way out, because he is the one who has divided Australia and he is going to be a damaged Prime Minister.
James, if the voice goes down, surely there can be no Makarrata Commission. The money in the budget for a Makarrata Commission, which is set up to go down the path of treaty, if the first step, Noel Pearson calls it the first door, if that door doesn't get opened by the Australian public, surely all this talk of Makarrata, truth-telling and everything else that was meant to come after it, that's got to end.
It will have to end, because the message that the Australian people and the message that the Queenslanders are sending, and Queensland, I think there'll be a no vote above 60%, maybe closer to 70%. Parts of Queensland will be 80%, will be, let's come together as a country and unite as a country, regardless of our race, regardless of where we come from. And all this other business, and you mentioned it in your opening comments, about every time you go to a meeting, someone has to do a welcome to country, and it's driving people nuts. We should be looking at what unites us as a country, and I'd be calling upon the Labor Party and the Labor government to look at what unites us and put that money towards those possible expenditure items into Aboriginal health and Aboriginal education outcomes for those who live in remote, regional and rural Australia.
Senator McGrath, thank you.